Hi, and welcome to Boom It's on the Blockchain. Join me and guests to discuss all the latest happenings in crypto, blockchain, tokens, and everything else that's happening in the space. Thanks very much. Hi, and welcome to Boom It's on the Blockchain. My name's Alastair Caithness, and we are in our 94th show. And today we've got a special guest coming from San Francisco, Trevor Koverko. Is that correct? How would pronounce your last name, Trevor?
Yeah, nailed it.
Nailed it. Perfect. So just to kick things off then, Trevor, can you just give a little bit of background about yourself and your company?
Yeah, sure. I'm a founder from Toronto. I'm currently based out of San Francisco. I'm very Web3 focused. I kind of started my career in Web3 early in the 2010s and got into the Bitcoin community before Ethereum. So that was the only thing to do back then. And then being in Toronto, that's where Ethereum was launched. So I was very fortunate to be a community member early on in Ethereum, before the launch, during the launch, and after the launch. And then in 2017, I started my own project. It was called Polymath. And since then, I've been launching Web3 companies ever since.
Yeah, so, obviously a lot of our viewers know of Polymaths. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was early 2017, 2018. And it was basically an idea we had where, hey, if protocols are coming out that can launch tokens, and tokens can live on them as kind of a settlement layer, a payment rails layer, maybe other things that are not coins could live on top of these blockchains. So things like stocks, bonds, real estate, securities. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we built out, was a way for anything to get tokenized, not just protocols and cash and NFTs, which was the only thing to do at the time, but everything we thought was going to come on chain. And, gosh, 6, 7, 8 years later, it looks like we're getting closer to that.
Yeah, perfect. So what do you think the future of Polymath is then?
Yeah, it's we have different products now. We've been out there for a while. We have a for-profit entity that helps businesses tokenize called Polymath, and we also have a layer 1 blockchain called Polymesh, which is kind of like the base layer for RWA, real world assets. And it's been doing really well. We've got I think 40 or 50 regulated financial institutions as nodes on the chain. And we built our own kind of sovereign layer 1 to help launch the coming wave of security tokens.
And do you have secondary liquidity through it?
Yeah, I think it's coming. The market, it's been very slow to adopt this. There's been some regulatory question marks, but if you look recently, what's been happening with Securitize and BlackRock and tokenized money markets, I think we're moving towards a more open regulatory regime. And so, yeah, right now there's not a ton of like ATS licensed security token exchanges with liquidity, but I think it's pretty inevitable at this point that we're going to see the market moving in that direction.
And will Polymath have its own ATS, or how will that work?
Yeah, right now, so I've got an amazing team and CEO running the business. I'm not as operational currently, but I think there's lots of plans to fully vertically integrate a one-stop shop, including that sometime in the future.
Okay, perfect. No, that's super interesting. So tell us a little bit more about your AI company then.
Yeah, no, so I got excited about AI as a new platform, which doesn't come along too often. Kind of every decade, it seems. There's like mobile, cloud, blockchain, AI is the latest one. And so I got excited about it. And I got a friend of mine to help kind of tutor me a little bit to get me up to speed on the technical nature of AI and how AI data is created and how compute works and different algorithms that kind of like adjudicate the two. And throughout that process, I kind of realized there was an interesting area that spoke to me in terms of like being interesting, which was that human feedback is a big part of this. So basically human fine tuning, kind of like the fact of getting humans to help structure data before and after training is actually a big part of AI. And I didn't expect that humans are integral to AI. I thought it was just like machines kind of, talking to each other. And so, so I clicked on that and learned about a really big industry, which is human feedback, RLHF as it's known, which is like getting an industrial scale amount of humans to answer questions to help like make the AI models perform better at the end of the day. So that was kind of an area that interests me and was surprising to me. And as I kind of learned more about it, I kind of said, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to do something new in the space, kind of like from a first principle standpoint, to help like both humans label data more efficiently, and then also companies who need humans to label the data get that done as well.
So how does that affect sort of scaling machine learning through AI?
Yeah, think of it. I'll even back up a sec. So like to make AI work really well, you need kind of two things. You need data and you need compute. And so an example of this is like OpenAI. When they were launching their first model, GPT-1, they needed the same thing. They needed a lot of data and a lot of compute. And they were actually one of the first companies to really focus on the data part and to really make sure the data is as structured as and high quality as possible. And one of the ways they did that is they took kind of like raw data that they would assemble, and then they put a lot of humans on that data to like organize it and structure it. And then once the data was ready, they started training the training data. And so that's kind of how models work. You need it's just an endless amount of raw data that you need to refine, and then it's kind of like a supply chain, like oil or something. It starts out as raw crude oil, and then you have to send it to a refinery. You can't just put raw crude oil in your car. You have to like refine it, and then after that step, you can actually put it in your car and drive away. So AI data is kind of the same way. Another analogy is like a furnace. This was a industry peer from the company Grass, and what he said was, it's kind of like a furnace. So AI training models are like the furnace itself, and then the raw, call it iron ore that goes into the furnace is like the data. And to make a sword or something useful, you need both things. You need like the raw materials, and you need to like fire blast that and make it useful at the end of the day. And so that's really AI in a nutshell. And if you look at the biggest companies in the world, you have like the data companies like Scale AI, which focus on the data, human structuring part of the data. And then you have like companies like OpenAI that build models. And then you have other like cloud providers that help with the compute. And this is like Microsoft Azure and stuff like that. So if you look at kind of zoom out and look at a mind map of the industry, people kind of fit in various categories. And now we're seeing a lot of subcategories get created, kind of like in crypto. It used to just be Bitcoin. And then now if you look at a mind map, there's like NFTs. And then within NFTs, there's like 1,000 sub components of that industry of like NFT exchanges and NFT influencers and stuff like that. So AI, especially Web3 and AI, where we're kind of at, like the intersection of those two, we're starting to see a lot more granularity emerge as the industry just gets a lot bigger.
Yeah, so you spoke about the OpenAI and the sort of GPT 4.0. So you used to talk about GPT 1.0. Now they're at 4.0. Can you explain to people what actually happens as they keep moving up the modeling?
For my purposes, there's a lot going on. But for my purposes, what's interesting is just the increase in human firepower is interesting. So from my research, OpenAI was spending 10 million a month on human feedback. So they're basically taking all this money, $10 million a month, and hiring humans around the world to label data. Again, labeling, structuring, annotating, these are all kind of the same thing. And so that was 2023. This year, from what I've heard, it's closer to $1 billion. So they've 10x'd from like 100 million-ish to $1 billion-ish, just for humans, just for human fine tuning and human feedback. And so that's kind of interesting to me, is like the best correlation for model performance is more humans. So what's everyone doing? They're putting more and more humans into their data to organize it and structure it. So it's kind of like this arms race going on where OpenAI is fighting with Mistral, who's fighting with Claude, who's fighting with Gemini, and they're all kind of like punching each other out to get better performance. And the best way to get better performance is to get more and more humans in these data sets.
So the Gemini, is that the Google program?
That's correct.
Okay, so how does that differentiate from OpenAI? Because most people just know it from the sort of OpenAI GBT model, I think, so.
Yeah, they're kind of converging in some ways, and they're all like, there's all these big LLMs, so large language models, right? And there's certainly benefits to scale, because like the more compute you have and the more data you have, the better your model is going to be. And we're seeing a little bit of diversity happening, where this model is specializing here, or this is a smaller model that's going to fit on your phone, etc. But like the big beastly models, this would be like Elon's model, this would be like Google's model, Gemini, this would be like Microsoft and OpenAI would kind of be considered one and the same in a lot of ways. And then half a dozen others, maybe. There's some startups as well. They're all trying to like justify themselves and perform better. And we're definitely seeing consolidations in some areas, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of because it's like an open marketplace right now. And it's exciting because everybody is just really pushing everybody else because the competition's so high. And I think the big beneficiaries here are consumers, because now you can use ChatGPT for free and you don't need to pay anyone. It's just a free service for humanity. And OpenAI is monetizing it through subscriptions from retail, but they're also going to be, I'm sure, doing more enterprise monetization as well. But to answer your question, yeah, a lot of these big guys just want to have their own models because they don't want to get left behind, and their public investors are looking for AI narratives to latch onto. And it's just an exciting time to be any participant in the industry.
So how does your company interact with the big players in the market, or what differentiates what you're doing?
So yeah, we would just be kind of a piece of the puzzle. So we would be an LLM that wants to get more human feedback in their data sets. They would use us. We're actually in working with a couple of them today. So they would use us, and they are using us to help fine tune data and to help structure their data using our kind of network of humans. So that's kind of where we fit in. It's like, hey, we're not going to help you with everything, but if you want more human fine tuning and you want high accuracy, high quality human feedback in your data sets, which ultimately turns into better performing models that you can brag about, and we're benchmarking better than these guys this month. So we're in that section of it. Back to the supply chain, just to really contextualize it, like there's like, if you're doing oil, there's like the drillers, and there's the refiners, and then there's the gas stations. We're just the piece of kind of the refinery. We're just in the process of like refining the raw oil or the raw material before it gets trained. So we're just that little section of that.
So how do you think it's going to affect sort of the financial services industry, AI?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'm an optimist. I am very excited. I think society needs AI right now because we have a lot of challenges, and we need to find growth and efficiencies and productivity from somewhere. And so every industry, not just the financial industry, is going to be affected by this. I think, me personally, speaking from anecdotal perspectives here, I'm using AI a lot. We use it internally at my company. I use it personally when I'm planning things, when I'm trying to write things. It's really a powerful tool. And so what's happening now is it's just making humans more productive. So from 2x more productive to 10x more productive. So we can just get a lot more done, and we can do a lot more at once, and we can attack much bigger problems. So I think for the financial industry, I think we're going to see a lot of companies benefit from it. We're going to see a lot disrupted by it as well, but that's a good thing. We want that. We want some of the incumbents to be on their toes, whether they're banks, whether they're broker dealers, anyone in the financial industry. I think it's healthy competition, and people are either going to learn to leverage it to be better and more effective, or they're going to get left behind.
Yeah, I think the left behind bit. I think that's what worries a lot of people out there. They think like if you ask them, how does AI affect their business, and usually I haven't lost my job yet. That's the normal number one thing they say to. But how do you think it's going to affect people in the job market, etc., with this technology, or is it just going to create a new market and we're all going to move into that, or how do you think it's going to work?
Yeah, I have opinions on that question. I think it's an economic fallacy. This is not the first time a technology was supposedly going to make everyone unemployed. So I think that's just an economic fallacy. I don't think there's no precedent of that happening. If it does, it's temporary. Look around. Every job opening is for software engineers, and that was supposed to automate and replace everybody, but that's where the growth is. And I think we want, more creative type jobs, like building type jobs, to be done by humans, and the more automated stuff to be done by machines. So like take drivers and truck drivers. That's a big one, where neural nets and AI and self-driving cars are going to for sure disrupt taxi drivers and Uber drivers and truck drivers. But I think that's okay, because we're gonna, it's easy for me to say, but I don't think it's going to be as bad, because AI is going to make it easy for you to retrain in something new and do something that's more useful to society now that machines can do something, and you're going to probably be more fulfilled because it's going to be a more creative human job that you're doing today. And if you look at the past as well, who wants to be being in the factory, risking your life to smelt iron or something? Like, do you want to do that job now? No, like we have robots and machines that do that, and that's freed us up to do cool things like hosting a podcast or starting a new AI company. And I think that's generally a positive thing. So the doomers and gloomers on AI, replacing all the jobs, I think is just pure and simple an economic fallacy.
Right. Well, that's a positive response we want to hear. So can you explain some of the sort of real world applications as well for AI, or what your company's working on right now?
Yeah, we're kind of like a tooling company, so we're kind of in the back behind the scenes a little bit. Although I do think part of what we're doing is enabling new. Here's an example of new jobs. So if you want to be a gig worker now, you've got to drive an Uber, or if you don't have a car, do a DoorDash on a bicycle or something. But with AI, it's creating human jobs as well. So this is a great example of something new that's being created out of something supposedly disruptive. So the thing Sapien does is it's giving anyone in the world with an internet connection, really, maybe an Android phone, a new employment opportunity where you can now label data for these big AI companies, or for even long tail mid-market AI companies who need data labeling. Everybody needs data labeling today. Now you can do that. You don't have to drive an Uber if you don't have a car. You don't have to DoorDash. You can just pull out your phone and label data 24/7, anytime you want. You can do it for 5 minutes at a bus stop instead of playing Candy Crush, or you can do it for 5 hours as a semi full-time job or a full-time job. You can label data, make a living wage, between $5 and $10 US an hour at the very low end, and life is good. And so that's an example of this wouldn't be possible without the AI revolution. But now, part of our thinking is that this will be the biggest gig work, is AI gig work, because everyone's going to be a data labeler. All of these models are consuming structured data that humans are a big part of. And so that's exciting. We could see a world where all of the gig workers combined are not the same number of AI gig workers, which is even bigger. And so there's an example, again, of a new industry creating new jobs that we just couldn't think of before.
So people can actually apply to your company, become data labeling?
Absolutely, yeah. You can label data anytime you want, including today.
Yeah. So have you got people all over the world doing this for you, or how's that working?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. It's global first, and you want that as well. By the way, you want a diversity of labelers. You don't want a bunch of Canadian white dudes in the room labeling data, because the outputs aren't as good. You want diversity. You want your AI to represent society. You don't want it to be biased or slanted by one group of people. So I think it's important to actually have as much diversity as possible.
So how do you actually train AI then with data sheets? Like, how does the coding actually work? If you want to give a sort of high level overview of how this works.
Yeah, so I think for the purpose of the discussion, just like conceptually, a high level, you can think of it as like a big data thing. So generative AI is just taking a lot of data and then kind of like putting it in a blender and guessing what the next thing you want is. So generative AI is the broad term for like ChatGPT. You ask it a question, and like every word, literally every syllable, every letter is being generated by the model. And so part of what you have to do is like make the model really good at guessing what the next word is going to be, or in the case of Dolly, what the next image is going to be. It's kind of interesting. Just a quick side note, for Sapien, my company, we actually were looking at a bunch of branding. This is kind of going into the job destruction side of things, so I'm trying to be fair. But as a founder, it's amazing. So we were looking at all these agencies to do branding, and we were like, it was just painful. There was like overseas agencies, and we had all these like payment issues and tax issues, and it was expensive. It was like $100,000 to get this what we needed. And then just out of frustration, we're like, you know what? We don't really know how this works, so we don't usually do this often, but let's use Dolly, which is I think an OpenAI model for image generation. And we just told them what we wanted, and it created the whole branding that we use to this day for our website. That was like beautiful. It was better than any of these other suggestions from like humans. And it's like, wow, talk about the speed. Now we can get our product to market faster. Now our brand is stronger thanks to AI. And now, like all these branding agencies, we're not going to get rid of them. We still need them for like certain parts of our branding, but we're going to expect them to be cheaper, faster, more responsive now that they can use these tools to make their product better. So anyways, that's an example of generative AI, like speaking to this machine and then the machine generating an image based on what you ask it. And the secret ingredients to make these models do this magic is data, and good quality data that we've talked about before, and then the training compute part of it as well. Like again, to the furnace example, you need all the data in the world is like all the rocks in the world. It's useless. But once you refine it, once you put it in the furnace, and once you chop away all the dirt and you get the copper or whatever, or the brass, then it becomes useful. So it's the same with AI. You need to like supply chain the raw materials.
So coming back to how you did the branding, is it dependent on really so the more specific the information you put in, the more exact it comes back, and then you can refine it? Or how does that actually work for people to understand?
Yeah, it's, I would encourage everyone just to play around with it. I think it behooves you to do such a thing because you're used to doing things in a certain way, and a lot of things in life are painful and harder than they should be. And AI is kind of like your full-time private worker / assistant / partner / teammate and / therapist. And we're not quite there yet. It still feels in some cases a little mechanical, but things are getting insanely good. If you look at OpenAI's recent demonstration, everything's becoming natural language. Everything's becoming real time. The latency is going down, and we're definitely moving in that direction. So it's kind of like being in 1999 or 2004 and not playing with the internet, or not playing with mobile, or not having a phone. And like, imagine not having a phone now. Imagine if you were still like holding out, and how less productive, and I don't want to say happy. We might be happier without our phones, but you'd be less productive in some sense. So yeah, I think everyone should, I just thought of one example, but like whether you're planning a trip, whether you're doing a press release or something, like, check out AI, see how that can help you. Check out these new models. They're free.
Okay, I was reading your blog just before you came on there, and there was one of the articles was about medical imaging and using AI for that. I think when you start going into the medical field, that obviously worries a lot of people as well, because first, really explain how medical imaging can be enhanced with AI, and then also, is this going to make less likely or more likely for this data to now get exposed or released?
I think it's easy to conflate subjects. Data security is a challenge always since data existed. Does AI pose some new challenges and opportunities there? Yes. It's kind of like, if you know anything about security and DEF CON type stuff, it's a whack-a-mole thing. There's white hat and there's black hat, and technology makes the black hat guys better and more dangerous, but it also makes the white guys protection better. And so that's not going to change. I know, the science fiction stuff, which is becoming less science fiction for sure, is an issue of having, not just AI. So for example, you can have AI say, how can I rob a bank or something? And then let's say you have some non-protected model that actually thinks for you and gives you the instructions on how to rob a bank. So that's one thing. And that is a problem. And you can do that today. Like, you can go on the dark web and Google something there, and then you'll get, here's how you do it. You go buy a gun or whatever. And then, so that's one thing. But AI can help you plan, I guess. But the next problem beyond that is going to be execution being done by AI. So robbing a bank obviously is not applicable here because that's in the real world, and until we have the cyborg robots, and we're getting those too. But what if you want to hack someone or hack something? You can use AI not just to plan it, but actually do it. And I think that's where a lot of the researchers are getting interested and concerned, is like these self-executing AI agents who kind of roam free. Because the step 2 is like they follow some human actor, and then step 3 is like they kind of run off on their own and start hacking everything because they're training themselves on how to, some output that they're deciding, not some human. So that's kind of the progression, and that's where a lot of the safeguards are being implemented right now. To be honest, I'm more concerned right now about humans affecting AI in a negative way. So kind of like programming into the AI certain biases and certain human-centered problems. So I don't think we're at the point yet where we're worried about AI in and of itself. It's still like, who's writing the AI? It's humans, right? Like, still. And so that to me is the concern, is how do we keep AI as open source and free as possible? I think I'm more concerned about humans co-opting it than AI agents, but that's a side issue.
Yeah, so because obviously data breaches is one that obviously worries a lot of people with it as well. The other thing is, it's like you spoke there about, a protected model. Explain a little bit, what is a protected model and the benefits of doing it versus an unprotected model.
So if you go and ask certain questions to these models, they won't answer them. So that's a protected guardrail that a human implemented, probably for good reason, saying, no, we don't want, we're bordering on, there's certain things we can all agree probably we shouldn't have out there for anyone in the world to access, like how to refine plutonium or something. We might not want that to be out there. But a lot of it's where do you draw the line, right? Because a lot of it is like around speech, right? It's like, I don't think this political candidate you should be able to write a poem about how much we love this certain candidate because this candidate's bad, and it's like, we're going to protect the world from. So then it's kind of like, well, where do we draw the line with free speech? My personal opinion is, I think speech should be free, and we should generally let people support the candidate they want or whatever in this coming election year. Without getting too political, I think that's where the questions are going to come up, is like, where do we adjudicate what the models are allowed to help humans with and not? And I think if you look at kind of like Elon's model, he's trying to go more on the open source free side of the coin, even though I don't think he's there yet fully. And then some other models would be a little more, and for good reasons too. Like, some of them, they're just so big and broad based, you can't just, there's certain risk and blowback and political issues. So it's kind of an evolving space. But I think we all agree there should be certain guardrails around these models. We shouldn't let the monster out of the cage. But at the same time, we don't want to stifle innovation and create too much regulation where, every government agency in the world has to approve every single code change to the code base every time. Like it would stifle innovation, which would prevent, like the internet, it was free, and look what we got out of it because it was relatively deregulated. And if AI, if we don't allow it some room to breathe for innovation, we might not get the same impact that the internet had. And AI could even have a better, bigger, more substantial benefit to humanity than even the internet, which says a lot.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think that's a concern for a lot of people. I think it's like, how does it affect, especially like if politicians or governments start trying to regulate it, and then who decides the regulation, and then is it back to the same few software companies that people always think that's running the world? But if you start thinking about changing topic a little bit, but like the blockchain, how does AI interact with the blockchain, and how will the blockchain sort of enhance AI?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know a lot of smart people on both sides of that, where it's overblown, the symbiotic potential between the two, and some who are very bullish on it. I'm in the latter camp. It seems so obvious to me, like if we have, these new AI agents in our near future that are going to be outnumbering humans by a factor of 1,000 or 1,000,000, it makes sense to have an underpinning base layer that's decentralized, that's open source, that's permissionless for a lot of this to run on top of. So, look, whether it's internet native payments to have these agents communicate and pay each other and have kind of like a toll booth where they can kind of like do commerce, that makes sense. If you look at decentralizing the pieces of the AI infra stack, whether it's the compute layer and having decentralized GPUs where anyone can upload their GPUs to the network and kind of have a bigger, more resilient network rather than these big tech companies, whether it's around newer technologies like zero knowledge, where you can kind of like verify and ensure privacy, but verify data as well, which is like, how do I know certain amounts of pieces of data were used to train this model? It's really hard today. Or whether it's things around data, that's where we are at Sapien, like using Web3 to help produce and leverage data in new ways, and to get humans more active and involved in the process. I think there's just a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, you mentioned there zero knowledge. I've not heard of that before. Can you just expand a little bit how that actually works?
Yeah, it's a computer science problem/opportunity that's been around for a while, pre-crypto actually, but crypto, I think, has actually done the best job at commercializing it and using it. And now we're seeing, especially recently, a lot of new projects using ZK tech to build new virtual machines or new blockchains where a lot of these tokens live on top of. Basically, in a nutshell, ZK is just helping a transaction be verified in a certain way where the sender and the receiver don't really need to know each other, but mathematically you can prove that this was done properly. The main reason, or one of the main reasons it's used in crypto, is for scalability. And so ZK actually is more efficient in a lot of ways, and it's also more private in a lot of ways. So those are kind of the two main reasons. And yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of use cases for ZK in Web3 in the same way we're seeing them for AI.
And another topic that's obviously key is like education, because if you go back to traditional education, it's like, well, you've got the right report on this. If you go to chat GBT and ask it to write your report on your subject area, it can knock it out in a couple of minutes type thing. So how is education going to change with AI, you believe?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think AI education is ripe for disruption. I think there's so many special interests and entrenched special interests where it's good for them, but the end user, the student, it's not good for, and it creates more cost and less quality. So I think with AI, it's the most obvious thing. You're going to have AI private tutors, which are free, which are much better than humans, which know you better than a human, which are giving you specific questions and answers based on you, not just based on making everyone in the class do the exact same thing. And so, yeah, I think it's going to totally revolutionize education in a positive way. And I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
And then obviously the funding model is, for a lot of students in America, when they go into like huge amounts of debt, etc., when they go in to learn, do you think this is going to change how the universities operate, or do you think their financial models are going to change because of the introduction of this way of learning out with going down the traditional education routes?
Not if the incumbents can have anything to say about it. They don't want change. They don't want evolution. Just look at the school system today is like identical to the 1800s in a lot of ways, with maybe just a couple laptops mixed in there. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm more interested as a founder and an investor, like new models that are different. They're not just like fixing the old problems, like brand new models of learning and self-learning where, maybe your degree doesn't matter as much as your knowledge. And there's ways to adjudicate that in more efficient ways rather than just spending 4 years at an institution and going into $300,000 of debt. So yeah, I'm more interested in new models that might emerge, although it's true. The education system, the healthcare system, these are huge industries that have been very resistant to technological change in a lot of ways. So there's reasons to be skeptical as well.
And you think from like a medical background again as well, that say in the UK it's got like a free medical system like in Canada, etc., but it takes longer to see specialists. You've got like a sort of NHS helpline whereby you can pick up the phone, you'll get a nurse on the end of the phone, you can talk about what's wrong with you at that moment in time, and then they can give you some instant advice, and then you can book an appointment to see the doctor. You think this type of AI model will help people as well, because they'll be able to start diagnosing, simple stuff that you don't normally go see the doctor, that sort of holds you back and gives you access to medical care through an AI model? Or has anyone built stuff like that already?
Yeah, geez, it's going to be fun to find out. We don't know. We're going to see AI in the machines that are going to do robotic surgery. We're going to see AI in the telehealth industry where you can actually just kind of describe your symptoms and get the power of 1 million doctors' brain together thinking about your exact problem and answering you the right questions again for free. So yeah, I think that whole industry is going to potentially benefit the most out of this new powerful technology.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So well, that's been great, actually, Trevor. I can keep asking questions about AI all day, but I appreciate you're a busy guy. Can you give a bit of insight in where your company's going to go in the next sort of 6 to 12 months? I know you finished a round of funding, and where you see your company in 3 years and 5 years from now.
Yeah, no, we're definitely early stage, and we're working on a lot of things at the same time here. So it's just a matter of us. Again, building the world's largest network of human data labelers. That's our mission. And so we want to 100x the number of data labelers in the world today. And so we just got a lot of work to do to build the infrastructure that's going to enable that to happen. And I'm hoping in the next 6 to 12 months, we have 1 million data labelers on the platform. That's a forward-looking statement, but that's our goal. And then eventually we want 100x that as well. And then this would be the new form of gig work that eventually is the biggest and fastest growing way for people to earn a livable wage online.
So if they want to learn how to become a data labeler, can you give the website address, or what's the process for them to do this, Trevor?
Yeah, sapien.io is the URL. And then we also have game.sapien.io if you want to log in to be a data labeler today.
Okay, perfect. So, well, appreciate it, busy guy. Thanks very much for coming on the show. It's been super interesting to learn more about AI, especially, people out there are sort of seeing the sort of negative doom and gloom in the newspapers and the online media portals. So it's great to get a positive look out for the future from yourself, Trevor.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks to everyone out there. You've been watching Boom It's on the Blockchain. My name's Alastair Caithness. Have a nice day.